frequency band, 890, 915, 935 to 960. But this channel is unused. This channel is unused, but otherwise the channels are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, so on up to 123, 124. Up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on up to 123 and 124. So if you come along and attempt to place a call on a GSM cell, the base station will first allocate you to an uplink and a downlink channel, let's say number 4. So we'll say EG channel 4. And then that channel will be subdivided in time. So basically what you'll do is you'll tune your radio to that particular frequency and start listening. And when you listen on that frequency, you'll see that 8 other users are using time slots. So now, this is in frequency. This is now in time. In time, we have frames of length 4.615 milliseconds. And these frames are divided amongst 8 users. So this will be user 1's time, user 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Once we hit 4.615 milliseconds, we start over. 1, 2, and so on. So if the GSM if your base station tells you you have channel 4, and within channel 4 you are user number 1, then what you do is you tune your radio to channel 4, and then you look for the first time slot. And this you would transmit here, here, and every 4.615 milliseconds thereafter. Good question. So synchronization is somewhat beyond what we're going to talk about, but there are each of these frames, only a small amount of this information is actually allocated to data. There's not a small amount, probably about 2/3 of the time here is allocated to data, and the rest is like training and synchronization bits and so on. But synchronization is generally a hard problem, so let's not spend a lot of time worrying about it.
So by synchronization, are we referring to control signals?
Pardon me?
Are we referring to control signals?
I think it would be more like, so if you wake up to, if you're assigned slot 1, how do you know when slot 1 occurs? If you're significantly off, you could end up interfering with your neighboring users.
So there has to be a slot for control signal?
I mean, there are reserved channels for control signals, but within a GSM frame, no. It's just like the question back there.
Why is it that there's so much bandwidth allocated for each user? It seems to me that's almost 25 kilobytes for each user, which is almost enough to transmit CD quality audio.
Minus the loss. We're not using loss.
Minus the third. Let's talk about that.
Right. So okay, let's see. 25. Okay, we have 200 kilohertz. Divide that by 8, and then it's, yeah, you're right, 25.
But you're still using the same. Every user is using the 200 kilohertz.
Every user is, so we have 8 users sharing 200 kilohertz. That's 25 kilohertz per unit.
Even half was 12 kilohertz.
Right. So I mean, there's a lot of, there ends up being an awful lot of waste in. Not an awful lot of waste, but an awful lot of margin built in. So each of these channels will have what's called a guard time built in, which will account for synchronization tuners. Each of these frequency bands will have a guard band built in. We haven't talked about that, but it'll have a guard band built in. What that'll do is if you tune in to channel 4 and you start transmitting, let's say, but you're traveling down the highway at 100 kilometers an hour, your signal will be Doppler shifted with respect to everyone else's. So that has to be accounted for. As I also said, these only about 2/3 of your data of your time. Actually, if you count the guard time, it's more like half. Only about half the time in each slot is actually dedicated to data. The rest is either guard time, or training, or synchronization, or control messages. So in fact, you actually don't get a whole lot of data. Another thing is this standard is probably getting close to 20 years old now. So because everyone had to agree on this 20 years ago, vocoder technology and things like audio encoding technology in any case was much more primitive than it is now. So although yes, you could use sophisticated modern techniques to encode very high quality data in arguably a similar band, they did the best they could with what they had available to them at the time. So, and it's not bad. Question over here.
So, is there any kind of code or encryption? Because can anyone just listen to it?
There is security, but I'm fairly sure there's no encryption. So if
I was listening to the wrong slot.
If you're listening to the wrong slot, you could get the wrong. So yeah, I'm fairly sure that these messages are not encrypted in any way. So it's
some kind of code.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure that doesn't happen. So I mean, it's not. It would require a certain level of sophistication to hack into your GSM handset and pick up someone else's call. Far beyond, let's say, modifying a police scanner to pick up an analog transmission. But yeah, it's not secure. I'm fairly sure, not 100% sure, but I'm fairly sure that it's not encrypted in any way.
Plus, it not necessarily have anybody there.
That's true. So yeah, and yeah, any your
of 1,000 people you could select from.
So you can hack yourself and go to whatever channels.
I mean, if you want to, go right ahead. It's not very easy. Like everything is so componentized and like down and integrated that basically there's like a chip and that's your radio. So you have to somehow open that up and mess with it. So it's not easy. Like you basically have to custom design a scanner.
You just had an RF transceiver that represents that frequency.
Yeah. So basically, what you'd have to do is you'd have to have a tuner that would grab some channel and GSM circuitry to listen into slots. So in other words, you probably couldn't open up your phone and do this. You'd have to basically have to design from scratch. So I mean, it's not secure in the sense that an adversary with arbitrary power could obviously listen into your phone call, but it's secure in the sense that average people with average amounts of time and money on their hands probably couldn't.
Plus, it is you have to be around the person.
Not necessarily. I mean, well, yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, but it's happened before with analog cell phones that like someone has followed someone else around and basically recorded their cell phone calls. Actually, this happened with British tabloids following around the royal family and just recording their analog cell phone calls. So it's not as ridiculous as it sounds. Okay, so how is this subdivided?